エルシャのシャルウィートーク。Hello and welcome to another episode of my podcast series エルシャのシャルウィートーク where we talk about otaku culture, voice acting, language learning, and more. I'm your host Erusha, a trilingual voice actress and Vtuber fluent in English, Japanese, and Mandarin Chinese. Today's episode will be in full English, but in the following month, I may record another full Japanese episode. So if you're currently studying Japanese and want a podcast to listen to for listening practice, make sure to tune in for that as well. Every episode on this podcast, I will be answering your questions, giving advice, and talking based on submissions sent in by my community. Today, I will be talking about my plans to move to Japan this year, how I learned Japanese, and also how I started doing voice acting. So, to start off, before I move on to going through your submissions, I want to update everyone on my moving plans. So, as some people might already know, I recently traveled to Japan to audition for my dream voice acting school. I passed the I'm a gaijin, but I'm Nihongo Josu enough test. So I got the enrollment papers, and now I'm planning to move to Tokyo in late April this year to attend the school. I will be attending the part-time course, taking 1 to 3 lessons a week, and each semester only goes for 6 months. I'm currently waiting for my working holiday visa to be approved. I am Australian. I have an Australian passport. I have a good track record, no criminal record, you know. I majored in Japanese in university, and I am certified in JLPT N1. So hopefully that gets approved smoothly. Hopefully the visa officer looks at my application and goes, okay, yeah, I totally see why she'd want to go to Japan. I have already purchased a flight ticket, and I'm currently scheduled to arrive in Japan on April 24th. And I just booked my accommodation actually yesterday. So the current plan is I will be staying with my friends who live in Japan for around a week before moving into a share house. I actually debated for a really long time whether I should book a share house or an apartment, but ultimately I decided to book a share house first because in a share house I am free to leave whenever I'd like to. It's fully furnished with Wi-Fi, so I can just grab my suitcase, land in Japan, and I can just start living there right away. I don't have to order a bed off Amazon and get my Wi-Fi set up like I would have to if I booked an apartment. So in this share house, I will get my own room with my own bed, my own desk, and I actually get my own kitchen and sink. So I can brush my teeth in my room, yay! But I will have to share the shower, the toilet, and the washing machine with 3 housemates. So depending on my gacha luck, this could be the perfect place or absolutely horrible. So yes, I am currently praying for good housemate gacha luck. I chose to start living in a share house first so that I don't have to sign a contract for an apartment that I might end up hating living in because, in share houses, your checkout date is a lot more flexible. If I decide after 1 month that I don't like it there, I can be like, sorry, I want to check out. And then I just check out and I don't have to pay for the next month's rent. So yeah, that's why I decided to stay in a share house first. Most apartments in Japan, just don't come with furnishing. So I'd have to buy my own bed, my own desk, and a lot of things. And I really want to make sure if I do get an apartment, I want to physically go to the place, check the condition, check the location, check if I like the place before I sign a contract. So yeah, right now I am quite happy with my choice. I like the fact that I get a mini kitchen and a sink, so I can do some things in my own room, like wash my hands, wash apples if I want to eat some fruits. I can put in my contact lenses in my room without having to go to the shared area. I can cook some noodles in my room if I want to, and it's nice to have access to that. So yeah, I'll just be sharing the shower, toilet, and washing machine. Hopefully, my housemates will be good people. My share house is actually only 30 minutes away from my voice acting school. And overall, it has really easy access to most places I'd want to go to in Tokyo around the JR line. So yeah, I'm very happy with my choice at the moment. I will be moving along with my current streaming microphone and a new streaming laptop that I just purchased to hopefully continue the activities I am doing at the moment, like taking voice acting commissions and streaming from time to time. I would like to continue this podcast series as well, so hopefully it'll be acceptable for me to continue doing some streams maybe in the afternoon. I'm currently looking into purchasing DIY soundproofing methods that don't require me to, stabilize things onto the wall, just like an enclosed wired box that you can put over your desk with soundproofing materials attached inside. It'll be like I'm working from a phone box or like a purikura booth, basically, the whole time. But you gotta do what you gotta do to make sure that you don't disrupt others. Ideally, all of my housemates are normies and they go out during the day, so it'll be acceptable for me to work on commissions or stream for a few hours in the afternoon. I will need to talk to all of them and be upfront about my job and, confirm their schedule to see if there's a time slot where it'd be okay for me to make some sound. So yeah, that's my plan so far. If you have any questions regarding my plans moving to Japan or signing up for a voice acting school, please feel free to send a submission on that topic to my next podcast episode, which will be broadcasted in either April or May. Hopefully, I'll be able to continue doing this series. If so, your question will be answered in the next few months. If everything goes smoothly, I will be recording the next episode and answering your questions in Japan. So yeah, that's exciting. Ever since I announced this podcast, I've received many submissions on the topic of learning Japanese. And because I'm currently in the process of moving to Japan, I thought it would be the best time for me to pick up all those questions about Japanese study and give my tips and advice on how you can go about studying Japanese. But first, let me explain how I learned Japanese. Some of you might know already, but in case anybody is a first-time listener, I am already perfectly fluent in Japanese. I do not get Nihongo Jozu'd anymore. I straight up get treated as a Japanese person. Because while having no Japanese descent, I am Asian. So I also have no accent when I speak Japanese. So in Japan, everybody just treats me as a Japanese person until I show them my Australian passport. Yeah. I took JLPT N1 for the first time in 2022, and I passed with full marks in the language knowledge and listening sections on my first try. I've been able to speak Japanese since I was in primary school, and I learned the language purely through consuming Japanese media. How I noticed I could understand Japanese was actually watching anime. So I was watching Pretty Rhythm, and I watched around 50 episodes until I realized the after credits scene is not subtitled. And yet, for 50 episodes, I was watching it normally. That made me realize, at some point, I became able to just understand Japanese without subtitles. Now, that might sound crazy, and it might be a little crazy, but I promise you, there are other people who have had similar experiences. I know a lot of people who also just watched anime and one day realized, oh, I kind of know Japanese now. Yeah, don't underestimate children's neural plasticity. If you don't know what that means, it's like your brain's ability to learn new things, basically. Yeah, children, when you're young, you absorb things like a sponge, especially if you were blessed with some linguistic talent. For some people, actually just consuming media at a young age can allow them to learn a whole language. It's pretty crazy. But yeah, so after realizing that I now understood Japanese, not perfectly yet, but enough for me to dive into more Japanese media that is not subtitled, I discovered and fell in love with Seiyuu Radio, which is basically podcasts hosted by Japanese voice actors. The first Seiyuu radio I ever listened to was Rajikyu, which is the radio program for Haikyuu, hosted by Hinata and Kageyama's voice actors, Murase Ayuma-san and Ishikawa Kaito-san. I was really surprised at how entertaining voice actors are, and I found myself drawn to their personalities, and I found their conversations so engaging, even though oftentimes they were completely unrelated to the characters that they play. Like, I still remember vividly, this was either episode 1 or episode 2 of Rajikyu. Murase-san said that he has an ear fetish or something, like he really likes people with pretty shaped ears. And I was just like, wow, I came here for Haikyuu content, but I didn't expect to, hear people talk about their fetishes. This is kind of interesting. So yeah, that was the beginning of a phase where I started binge listening to a bunch of Seiyuu radio, from clips to full episodes, and before I knew it, my Japanese listening skills had advanced to a point where I pretty much understood 90 to 100% of everything I consumed, which is pretty crazy. At this point, I had never gone to Japanese school, never, officially, I guess, studied Japanese. All I did was just watch anime and listen to radio. And I could understand 90 to 100% of most of the Japanese content that I wanted to consume. Probably at that point, my vocabulary was not good enough to listen to things like the news or just stuff that involve more, I guess, difficult, complicated vocabulary. But as far as just casual conversations go, I pretty much could understand everything I needed to already at that point. So that's how I developed my listening skills. And when it comes to speaking, I've always had the habit of talking to myself. And I actually used to dream of having my own radio because I really looked up to Seiyuu, who host radio programs, and sometimes I would pretend like I was a radio host and talk to myself as if I had an audience and answer my own imaginary questions to myself or just talk about my thoughts and experiences in Japanese to myself in my room. Now, that might sound really stupid and really delulu, but that habit of mine is what allowed me to become such a confident and eloquent Japanese speaker. Most people struggle the most with speaking, I think. Listening tends to be a lot easier to pick up, I think. And I noticed that for a lot of people, even if their Japanese vocabulary is very good, they simply do not practice speaking enough. And therefore, even though I feel like, oh, you understand so much Japanese, why can't you speak? They'll be like, I know, wakarimasen. They just don't practice, so they don't have the habit of forming sentences. Actually, if they wanted to, they could, because they understand this much. They're just not used to speaking it themselves. So, forming sentences and speaking smoothly requires you to be used to pulling out different words and grammar patterns out of your head. And for me, that came really naturally because I always talk to myself. Ideally, you want to be in Japan or have Japanese friends in your own country so that you can actually talk to someone in Japanese and don't have to be delulu. But, if you don't have access to that, like me, talking to yourself is always an option. Don't be ashamed. Trust me. It might seem embarrassing or stupid or delulu, but it will actually improve your speaking skills drastically. As for reading and writing, I had to study that normally, like most people. So I started off with remembering hiragana and katakana, and I moved on to slowly building up my ability to read kanji. I started going to Saturday Japanese school in high school, where I had a bit more opportunity to do things like write essays, which pushed me to get better at reading and writing slowly. My speaking and listening skills were off the charts compared to reading and writing, so I often shocked my classmates with how Nihongo Jozu I am. And my teachers didn't really know how to deal with me either because they'll be teaching vocabulary at that level, and then I would understand everything. But then my reading and writing were really bad, so I was in that class, and it was just like the level to which I understood when it came to speaking and listening versus reading and writing was so different that it was really hard to allocate me into a class. Yeah, and even now I still think compared to reading and writing, I am much better at listening and speaking. So yeah, don't worry, even I am still in the process of improving my reading and writing skills. Yeah. After high school, taking just, one class per week on Saturday, I went on to major Japanese in university, where I had the opportunity to speak Japanese more in class and also write essays and do research projects in Japanese. So over time, my Japanese improved more and more to my current level, where I can confidently express myself in Japanese, communicate with native Japanese people, and now I can even use some business Japanese. I wrote an email like a week ago to the voice acting school that I applied for, and I was shocked at how much I've improved when it comes to business Japanese. It was like, お世話になっております。よろしくお願いいたします。ご迷惑おかけしますが. And I was like, damn, this is stuff that, me in middle school, high school didn't know at all, because back then all of the knowledge of Japanese I had came from anime and Seiyuu radio, which was mostly casual speak. So, the very difficult polite language that you have to use when applying for things in like business, I didn't know any of that. And I've come to a point where I can use a bit of that too, so I'm really proud of myself. Yeah. I do still struggle to read some kanji from time to time. Actually, no, that's giving myself too much credit. I still very much struggle with kanji. I know all the basic kanji, I'd say, but I don't think my kanji reading level is at the level to be expected for my age. So I still need to work on that. Yeah. You guys might have heard of this, but even Japanese people struggle with kanji. So I think it's okay to take it slow when it comes to learning kanji. I'd say my reading skills are improving year by year. It's just a very slow process. I actually got told by my interviewer at the voice acting school that my Japanese is better than some Japanese people, which is really flattering. But I know that I'm still lacking in many areas, especially when it comes to reading. So hopefully by moving to Japan, I can improve my Japanese skills even more. So yeah, that's been my journey of how I became fluent in Japanese. So now let's have a look at some of your questions and see if I can give some useful advice on studying Japanese. So today we are going to start off with a submission from Frayed, who says, 今夜 I was hoping for some advice on learning Japanese. Do you have any recommendations on learning materials for beginners? I've tried using Duolingo, which kind of works since the Duolingo bird is low-key horrifying, but I didn't learn anything useful from it. I had better success with listening to Pimsleur's Learn Japanese, but regrettably, it only helps me learn how to speak Japanese, so I get the blank-eyed, confused look when I look at katakana and kanji. Any advice would be greatly appreciated. 上手じゃありません, Frayed. Thank you for your submission, Frayed. Good old Duolingo, yes. I actually have this submission combined with another submission who asks similar things. So we have another submission from Anonymous-san who just gave me three questions regarding learning Japanese. They ask, 1. I want to learn Japanese, but don't know where to start or what to prepare. 2. What kind of routine or schedule should I follow? And 3. How can I actually practice my Japanese? So because both are asking about learning Japanese as a beginner, I thought I could combine these. First, on learning materials. Personally, I've never tried Duolingo. I've heard both good and bad things about it, but it seems like the general opinion of Duolingo seems to be that it's good for the beginner of beginners to dip their toes into studying the language, but it's not very good for long-term results if you really want to actually become a fluent speaker. I've never looked into Pimsleur's Learn Japanese, but my recommendation for practicing listening will always be to just consume content. Consume content that you enjoy as a hobby, and to not rely on learning materials. You don't need to. You will absorb information so much faster if you can learn through passive consumption. I know not everybody learns as fast through this method, but I think you can. It just might be slower for you, depending on your age and how quickly you absorb languages. But I guarantee you, you can always learn through passive consumption. So, watch anime with Japanese subtitles. Don't watch dub. Watch anime with subtitles to learn Japanese. Watch subtitled J-dramas. There's a lot of them available on Netflix nowadays. And watch Japanese variety shows. I'm not sure where you can get access to that, but there's a lot of Japanese content out there that's not just anime. And J-dramas is actually a really underrated one. I feel like K-dramas get all the attention and people don't really talk about J-dramas, but there are a lot of good J-dramas out there. You know, on the top of my head, a J-drama that I watched recently that I've been recommending everyone to watch is こっち向いてよ向井くん, which is available on Netflix. I think a lot of people have already checked out this one because I keep talking about it, but there's a lot of really, really good J-dramas you can check out. And J-dramas, I think, are especially good because unlike anime, it's about real people living in the real world. You know, just living their day-to-day lives, falling in love, going to work. So you can hear a lot more natural day-to-day use Japanese. Yeah. Another thing I recommend is to watch multilingual streamers like me and many others. You might not notice yourself improving, but I promise you will improve naturally. That's how language learning works. I didn't notice that I was improving too until I talked to people and they were like, wow, your Japanese got better again. And I'm like, did it? It doesn't feel like that, but I guess I got better. That's how it goes. You won't realize yourself, but you will get better. And as for speaking, like I said for how I improved, I think you just have to use your Japanese as much as you can. So talk to yourself, talk to any Japanese people that you have connections with. Take Japanese classes, even if it's just once a week. It's not about taking the class itself. It's more about having access to a teacher who is fluent in Japanese, who you can talk to, and having access to a room full of classmates who also want to learn Japanese and can speak a bit of Japanese, so you can talk to them. That's what makes Japanese classes valuable. And travel to Japan or study there for a bit if you have the means to do so. The most important thing is to put yourself in an environment where you are basically forced to speak Japanese. So you cannot chicken out and play it safe. That is the worst thing to do. When people go to Japan and instead of, trying to speak a bit of Japanese, they chicken out and try to just use English. Don't do that. Even if it's just a thank you, don't say thank you, say arigato. Get used to it. Practice it. It's okay. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. And instead, be excited that you get to speak Japanese. Even if your grammar is all over the place in the beginning, it's okay. Just use Japanese. That is the true key to learning anything, really, is to just be excited to improve. I remember jumping at every chance I got to speak Japanese. Like in primary school, I remember there was this girl in my karate class who I heard was Japanese. And then I was like, oh my god, I have a Japanese person in my class? So I immediately started speaking Japanese to her with my limited Japanese knowledge at the time. And she laughed at me. But it's okay, because I was just so excited to finally have the opportunity to speak Japanese. Maybe back then my grammar was wrong, or it was really weird that I suddenly went up to her and just started talking in Japanese, but I think that's the kind of energy that you need to just be really excited to jump at every chance you get to speak Japanese. Just remember, don't be a bother to people who don't seem interested in talking, okay? I promise you though, you will find people who think it's really cute how enthusiastic you are to speak Japanese. Trust me, especially Japanese people, they oftentimes will be very happy, right, that foreigners are trying to learn their language. So if you go up to them and you're really excited, and of course don't say anything rude, make sure you know like the rude things that you shouldn't be saying. And if you try to go up to them and be like, こんにちは、僕日本語勉強中です, they'll be really happy to help you. Who knows, maybe you can also teach them some English. I think the language learning space is overall very friendly and welcoming. I've personally never found it annoying when people come up to me excitedly and try to speak a few words of Japanese and ask me for tips and advice. I guess it's only annoying if you keep pestering them even when they're busy. So it's just normal social cues. If they're free and they seem open to talking to you, feel free to just try speaking some Japanese to them. And once you get used to that process of drawing the Japanese vocabulary and grammar patterns out of your head, you will get better and better at speaking. Yeah. So, for the question of where to start, I guess the answer is to just surround yourself with as much Japanese as you can, from consuming media in the Japanese language to speaking the language at whatever chance you get. There's no need to follow a routine or a schedule, I think. But you have to remember to keep going and don't stop halfway. Because if you stop halfway, then maybe a lot of the knowledge is still retained in your short-term memory and you will forget. So, as an example, I think if I, at some point, like maybe in my last year of high school or something, I stopped consuming Japanese media and I got obsessed with K-dramas instead. And for a while, for a year or something, I switched from watching a lot of anime and J-dramas to watching K-dramas instead. I'm pretty sure if that happened, I would not have gotten as good at Japanese as I did. So, if you've decided that you want to learn Japanese and that is your goal, focus on that and implement anything that involves listening to Japanese into your daily routine. Even if that's just watching the latest episode of your favorite anime with subtitles, that's okay. You still listen to Japanese on that day. Just don't stop. Don't stop. And try to add more if you can. Change your phone language to Japanese. If you can read basic hiragana, katakana, and some simple kanji, change your phone language to Japanese. So that instead of what's an example? Instead of weather, your weather app will say tenki. And then you'll never forget the fact that weather is tenki in Japanese. Right? Instead of clock, it'll say toke. I actually don't know what the apps are called in Japanese, but you know what I mean. The apps and the things that you have downloaded in your systems, they will all be labeled in Japanese instead of English. And if you're familiar with what they are in English, you will naturally learn the equivalent of, how they are spoken in Japanese. If you look at it enough, you'll remember the kanji. So, yeah, that's a good way. I sometimes do that. I actually have my phone set back to English now, but honestly, because I'm moving to Japan again soon, I should set it to Japanese again. I need more practice with kanji as well. Let's see, what else can I recommend? Oh yeah, there is actually a lot of subtitled Japanese podcasts that you can check out on YouTube with a quick search if you want to hear more natural day-to-day use Japanese. And as I said earlier, I also recommend checking out J-dramas. It really depends on your current Japanese level. If your Japanese is already good enough to listen to a Japanese podcast or watch anime and understand maybe like 50 to 60%, you can try just listening to stuff that aren't subtitled and see how much you can pick up. And when a word or something is mentioned that you don't understand, just search it up. That's what I did. When I started watching or listening to Rajikyu, I remember one of the first words that came up that I didn't recognize was kappatsu, which means like energetic. Because we all know this, but energetic to me is genki. I always just thought genki, energetic. I didn't know there were other words that you can use to describe like an energetic, lively personality. And that was my first time ever hearing the word kappatsu. And what did I do? I just opened up Google and I was like, kappatsu meaning. And I was like, oh, there's another word that I can use for like describing someone with a kind of bubbly, energetic, lively personality. It doesn't have to be like genki. And you learn like that, right? Just be open. If you hear a word that you don't know and you're curious about what it means, don't just sit there and be like, oh, I don't know what that means. Google it. Google it and then you'll remember. Just like how I'm never gonna forget the fact that I looked up what kappatsu means, right? So yeah, go consume content. Sorry for sounding like a broken record, but because that's how I learned Japanese and how, honestly, all of the people I know who got really, really good at Japanese, they all tell me, like, they just consume a lot of content too. Of course, other things like being able to live in Japan for a prolonged period of time really helps, but in the end, it's the same thing. It's about surrounding yourself with Japanese. So, when it comes to reading and writing, that's the boring part. Things like learning hiragana and katakana, I'm sorry, but it's really just about memorizing. It's really just about memorizing them until you're familiar. And kanji is pretty much the same. I also find improving reading and writing to be the most grueling and difficult part of studying Japanese, but it's also the part where traditional learning materials can actually be useful. So, textbooks like Genki or Obento, which is the one that I used in school, they have a lot of short texts and sentences that are designed to help you familiarize with different grammar patterns and slowly build up your kanji reading skills. So you can always use textbooks for learning reading and writing, but a more fun way you can try to use to remember kanji is to read manga. Yeah, because manga in Japan, they all come with furigana, which is basically on top of every kanji, there will be a little hiragana, katakana label on how to read it. So if you are super familiar already with hiragana and katakana and your vocabulary is pretty good, you can read manga. Don't worry about the kanji that you can't read because they will all be labeled for you so that you know what they mean. But yeah, you will need to already have a pretty good vocabulary for that and be very familiar with hiragana and katakana first. So if you're not there yet, start off with practicing your hiragana and katakana. What I did was just write them out 5 times a day. And I had, oh my god, I had a list of katakana was especially hard for me to remember, like I think for most people. So I had all katakana written out and labeled on this sticky note. And I had it stuck everywhere in the house. So I had it stuck on my desk lamp. I had it stuck next to the toilet. Even I had to do this. So I think when it comes to remembering hiragana and katakana, you really just have to remember the traditional way. Write it as much as you can. Have it in sight so that you get used to looking at it. Always jog your memory so that you don't forget. And eventually you'll get to a point where it becomes easy to read. I think now I finally got into a point where hiragana and katakana are not that hard for me to read. I still get stuck on katakana sometimes though. Especially shi and tsu and so and which basically look the same and are just like on a slight different angle. And I'm like, who designed this? Why would you do this? Why? But yeah, there's no point in complaining. So you just have to try your best and remember it. Yeah. Another method I use is playing visual novels in Japanese. This is especially good if your listening skills are great. And if your listening skills are great, but you can't read very well, which was me, this is probably the best method because the dialogue in visual novels are voiced. So what you can do is follow along what the characters are saying, and you understand what they're saying, but you can't read the text. So you just listen while you read the dialogue that pops up. And then by doing this, by repeating this, you can learn a lot of kanji. I played an otome game called Buster Fellows in Japanese, and in Buster Fellows, all of the dialogue is voiced, including the heroine, which the heroine sometimes is not voiced. So I picked Buster Fellows to play in Japanese because I know the heroine is also voiced. So I just followed along the entire game, listening to the voiceover while I looked at the kanji. And I learned so many new kanji. So yeah, that's another method you can use. To wrap it up, in order to actually practice Japanese, you will need to put yourself out there. Join Japanese Discord servers. Go to Japanese class. Make Japanese speaking friends. Or go to Japan if you can. When you surround yourself with the language, that's when you will improve the fastest. Yeah, good luck. I hope my advice was helpful. That was really long, but I wanted to make sure I cover all the areas from listening to speaking to reading and writing. Yeah, so that's my advice. Overall, I recommend focusing on just consuming media and surrounding yourself with the language. Good luck on making Japanese speaking friends, or become delulu like me and talk to yourself. Alright, let's see. We have, I believe, 1 or 2 more questions on studying Japanese. So, let me drink some water so I can keep talking. Next, we have a submission from Chocolate Waffle. Thank you, Chocolate Waffle. Hi, Edit. One of my goals for the new year is to get back to studying Japanese. I want to be at an N3 level before my next trip. Currently, I am at N4 level. Most of my Japanese was learned through self-studying, and I've completed Genki 2. Back when I was studying, I would go through the textbook alongside a YouTube lesson covering it, do the lesson's practices and workbook exercises, make Anki cards for the lesson's vocab, and review them daily. Wow, you worked really hard. However, when I stopped studying/reviewing, I slowly started to forget everything. I was wondering if you had any advice on how to turn the things I learned into long-term memory. Even if I often watch Japanese content like anime, YouTube videos, and your streams, it doesn't seem to be enough to retain my skills. Looking forward to your next Japanese Datsu learning stream. Thank you! Thank you for the submission, Chocolate Waffle. Right. How to make sure that it's not just short-term memory? I think that's one of the reasons why I recommend learning Japanese through passive consumption of content over textbook studying. Because textbook studying oftentimes really only helps you learn things short-term, and I think you'll forget it really quickly once you stop studying it as a routine. So if you feel like watching content or consuming content isn't enough for you to retain your skills, I think it's probably because you're not actively using Japanese yourself. Like I suggested for the previous submission, if you already have a basic understanding of Japanese at N4 level, I would recommend trying to engage in basic conversation with Japanese speakers. Try joining a community with Japanese people. Take some Japanese classes if you can, and overall try to make friends with people who can speak Japanese with you. If you're an introvert, and that's too hard, I totally get it. Don't worry. Me too. I'm also an introvert and I suck at making friends. Do you know what you do when that's the case? You just have to be shameless and talk to yourself. Like me. Yeah. There's only two options. You either try your best to get to know people who can speak Japanese with you, or you become delulu and talk to yourself. I'm sorry, there's no other option. You have to use it. As long as you don't use your Japanese, it will be much harder for you to retain it in your long-term memory. So pick one. A, try to make friends. B, become delulu and talk to yourself. At least you get two options. So yeah, that's my recommendation when it comes to speaking. When it comes to reading and writing, one of the things I also did when I started practicing was to start writing a diary about your day. If you're thinking, oh, I'm not good enough to write about my day yet, it's okay. Use Google Translate as a tool. Not to write for you, but to help you. I think a lot of people misunderstand what translation tools can be used for. I still use Google Translate sometimes to help with stuff. I don't paste text into Google Translate and then just use that directly. I use Google Translate to supplement my own knowledge, if that makes sense. The key is to not paste the entire huge chunk of text into Google Translate and expect it to give you a perfect translation. What you need to do is use it to translate singular words or sentences, listen to it, check if it sounds right to you, use it to help you. Allow Google Translate to help you to write sentences, but don't let it write everything for you. Does that make sense? And once you learn how to utilize translation tools to supplement your lack of knowledge without completely relying on it, it'll actually help you improve your Japanese skills. So yeah, keep consuming content that you enjoy, but also try to start actively using Japanese more. Start a diary, find an environment to talk in Japanese. Hang out in my community. We have a lot of Japanese viewers here, and I oftentimes switch between English and Japanese when I stream. I had a long-term friend message me the other day and say that they tuned into my stream for the first time in a long while and noticed that, I speak Japanese more now because, I have Japanese viewers now, and when I first started streaming, I didn't really have any. So especially when I'm trying to announce something, like when I came back from my audition in Japan and I was explaining how things went, I would go through what happened in English, and then right after that, I would go through the same thing, but in Japanese. My friend told me that was really, really helpful for learning Japanese because I basically would go through the same story twice, but in two languages. So yeah, watch erusha VA. Get good at Japanese. So true. Moving on. Okay, we have one more question about learning Japanese before I move on to some questions regarding voice acting. So, we have a submission from Anonymity. So many people named Anonymous. Eyo Eru ne-sama. I've been wanting to learn Japanese for quite some time now. I can see myself going to Japan sometime in the future, and I want to learn some functional, everyday, conversational level Japanese. That's why I installed Duolingo. Oh, good old Duolingo again. A certain green owl app. But I wasn't able to follow through. I can identify simple phrases I've mentioned before. I've been trying to listen to Japanese VTubers, and I still can't follow that much since I only know some words and phrases. How do you think I should move forward with this? I also want to be able to hold a conversation without JP bros in the server and in chat, so I want to learn. Ah, I see. I think it's okay to take it slow. As you mentioned, you only know a few words and phrases right now, so it's still difficult for you to watch a full Japanese VTuber. If that's the case, I would say don't try to do that yet because you're just not going to understand what they're saying. What's more helpful is probably to just watch subtitle content for longer until you feel comfortable to move on to content with no subtitles. So, subscribe to a lot of clippers. There's a lot of clippers out there for VTubers who speak Japanese because, you know, a lot of Japanese speaking VTubers are super popular in the international scene. So you can definitely find some who have a dedicated clipper who makes subtitles for their clips. That would be really good for learning more Japanese. And you can also follow multilingual streamers like me. You should try to follow VTubers, content creators who use both Japanese and a language that you're fluent in. And I think that will help more than listening to pure Japanese when your Japanese level isn't high enough to fully understand what they're saying yet. Yeah. And on the topic of wanting to hold a conversation without JP bros in the Discord server, don't be afraid to do that now. Don't be afraid to try talking to our JP bros. They are super friendly, super nice, and they are really open to chatting to other members. Even if you're not Nihongo Josu yet, like I see a lot of people in my community, you know, using their broken Japanese and broken English and with a bit of help of Google Translate to communicate with each other. And they have lots of fun. People, when they are in the process of trying to learn a language, are really open to doing everything in their power to communicate what they're trying to say. You don't have to wait until you're good enough to hold a conversation. You can try now. You might have to use, you know, bits and pieces and a bit of broken Japanese to communicate, and it might not be holding a conversation per se, but you can start now. And as I've mentioned so many times in my answers to the previous questions, it's when you start being excited to use Japanese at every opportunity you get. It's when you start actively trying to use Japanese as much as you can that you start improving drastically. So because you have access to some Japanese people in my community, talk to them. When you see them in VC, when you see them post stuff in the server, reply to them, talk to them in chat when, you know, you're all watching my streams, and you might learn a thing or two. Yeah. A lot of my Japanese viewers are actually super keen on learning English as well. So if you speak English and they speak Japanese and you both want to learn each other's language, you can do like a cultural exchange. And I'm sure both sides will be super willing to help the other. Yeah. So that would be my advice. I hope all of the advice that I've given on learning Japanese has been helpful. I'm sorry if I repeated a lot of the same things, but I genuinely believe that the most useful thing to do is to 1. Consume content, and 2. Actively use Japanese and surround yourself with Japanese speakers. Be in an environment where you can hear Japanese and use Japanese. That is truly the only hack. All of those people who are like, I learned Japanese in 5 days, don't listen to them. They're lying, probably. I don't know. I haven't watched their videos, but I think they're lying, and you shouldn't try to find a shortcut to learn Japanese. Understand and acknowledge that it is a long process, and understand that there's no magical textbook or magical anything that you can use to get better. If there's one magical thing, that is moving to Japan, which instantly gives you access to millions of people who speak Japanese. Japanese signs everywhere. Japanese media everywhere being played on the streets. And you will improve so fast. That's why people who go to Japan and study for even just a few months will come back and be so Nihongo Jozu. There's a reason to it. So yeah, if you don't have the means to move to Japan, all you can do is try your best to find communities online that allow you to use Japanese. Or, one final time mentioning this, be Delulu and talk to yourself in Japanese. Thank you. That wraps up my advice when it comes to learning Japanese. I guess we can move on to talking a bit about voice acting. Let me drink some water. So, I have a submission from Lily, who says, Hi Adam, I really enjoy your Seiyuu work and your range is super impressive. Thank you. I was hoping you could talk about how you've built up your skills over time. How do you practice? What are some surprising things you have to consider? Thanks for the streams and happy first anniversary. I'm just a little lurker, but I really enjoyed it all. Aw, thank you, Lily. It's actually my second anniversary now. It's a bit confusing, but I debuted as a VTuber on November 27th, so hasn't been that long since my VTuber debut anniversary. But when it comes to streaming, today actually marks my 2-year streaming anniversary. So I thought it would be a really good time for me to talk about my plans from here on out and, talk a bit more about my history on how I learned Japanese and how I started voice acting. Yeah. So to move on to talking a bit about how I started doing voice acting, I pretty much started off by doing a lot of voice impressions and dubbing over anime scenes. Now, some voice acting coaches will say doing voice impressions and trying to copy voices is bad. But this is my personal opinion as someone who has not gone through professional training, so take my advice with a grain of salt. I think it's the same as art. As long as you can eventually find and develop your own style, I think there's a lot you can learn from trying to copy others. While I don't know if, my techniques are professionally correct, I learned a lot of techniques from observing professional seiyuu on how they control their breath, on how you can end your sentences in certain ways to express a specific effect, like how making your voice breathier towards the end of a word can make it sound sexier. Things like that. I also unknowingly learned bidakuon, which is a technique professional seiyuu learn to beautify their voice. I don't know if there's a professional terminology for this in English. I have not looked into English voice acting courses, but in Japanese, there's a thing called bidakuon, which literally translates to just like beautiful voice, kinda, where you speak a sentence, but you cut off at certain points, or make certain sounds less noticeable to make it sound more beautiful. This is one of the only things that I've listened to like a little bit of a textbook introduction of, but the example they gave was 花が咲いています, which is flowers are blooming. Now, if you say it normally, it would be 花が咲いています. But if you want to say it with bidakuon, it would be 花が咲いています. And the difference is not like, I guess, the tone and the change of my voice, but the fact that instead of saying ga, like make that really harsh ga sound, I said nga. Can you hear the difference? Instead of saying ga, I said nga. That little difference makes it sound more beautiful. And professional narrators and voice actors are all trained to talk in this way. Same with the last part where it says 咲いています. Instead of saying ます, you say ます. You cut off the su sound, you don't say ます, you say ます. That is also a part of bidakuon. Again, I'm not professionally trained in this, I'm just speaking of that one video that I watched talking about this. But what I realized after watching that video was that I had started doing this unknowingly. I have never been taught what bidakuon is, and yet I was already doing this. Whenever I voice act, I was already doing this. And I guess I just unknowingly picked it up from observing and copying professional Seiyuu. So, personally, I think there's a lot of valuable things to learn from just observing professionals. They are professionals for a reason, and if you listen very, very closely to how they do things, and you're very good at, I guess, picking up the little subtle differences in the way they speak sentences compared to people who are not voice actors, you might pick up on a technique or two, like how I did. So I guess that's how I built up my skills over time. In the beginning, it was just a lot of copying and observing professionals. When I started doing voice impressions and dubbing over anime scenes for fun, I developed an interest in voice acting as a craft, and I started listening to anime more observantly. Instead of just watching and be like, oh my god, that Sakuga was so hype, I stopped looking at the Sakuga. I would like zone out. I would zone out from the Sakuga, okay, it's hard to zone out from the music because usually music and voice acting work as a pair to create an effect, but I would zone out from the Sakuga. I would just like not focus on anything visual on the screen, and I would focus solely on the sounds. And I noticed there were so many subtle things that voice actors do to add emotion, to add flavor into their performance. And sometimes it's just one line. And when a line hits and makes me feel something, I would go back and replay it. I would replay it and study it and think about what makes that line so powerful. They just said one word. Why does it hit so hard? What about the way they perform this makes it hit so hard? I was curious, and I was paying attention, and I was observing and analyzing. And by repeating this process, always stopping to observe and think about, I wonder what made that line hit so hard. I wonder why the way they performed elicited this kind of emotion from me. I wonder why I could get the impression of this by the way they performed this. By thinking about that all the time and being really observant, I think I unknowingly, like subconsciously, picked up a lot of techniques that I use when I perform as well. So, yeah, I think the best way to practice, especially in the beginning, is just to observe professionals. Look at how professionals do it. Listen closely. And then you can start trying to implement that into your own performance. I think that's my advice. What are some surprising things you have to consider? Let me think. I think the most surprising thing for me when I started, I guess, taking voice acting more seriously, like it went from just, haha, oh my god, I wanna say anime lines for fun, to, wow, I'm actually like interested in acting. I think the turning point in that was me realizing how important character building is. So, when I first discovered voice acting, I thought it was just about putting on a voice. I thought it was just about sounding cute if you're a lolly character, or, you know, having a deep, sexy voice if you're a, mummy character. I thought that was all it was about. And I'm sure to this day, a lot of people still think that's what voice acting is about. It's just about putting on a voice, making it sound nice. But that's not what it is. Actual voice acting, like professionally, it's about feeling the character. It's about becoming the character, and it's about embodying the character. It's about living through the character's experiences as if it was your own, and building a whole profile on this character. So it's really hard to explain, but I remember also some voice acting coaches that I saw on YouTube saying, when you get a task to perform a line, don't just look at the dialogue. Think about the before and after. What kind of life did this character live? If it's, let's say, a scenario about a girl confessing to her senpai, don't just think about, oh, how can I sound cute and shy? Think about, why does she like him? Why did she choose this timing to confess to him? What is their history? You have to add depth to every scene that you perform. And when it comes to voicing in, an anime, a pre-existing series that has a story, read the story. Figure out this character's childhood. If you have access to that, figure out why this character is the way they are. You have to really, really think deeply about why they are the way they are, and what their motivations are, and why they are choosing to do whatever they are doing in that moment, and why it leads to this dialogue. So, I guess the most surprising part is how much thinking there is. Who else thought voice acting was just about, oh, cute character, sounding cute. Sexy character, sounding sexy. It's not that simple. The hardest part is building the character, really understanding who they are, delving deep into their history and their motivations. I think whenever I hear acting that touches me, whenever I hear someone's acting and it shakes me to my core and it leaves an impact on me, I think that is acting from someone who has thought really deeply about the character and has truly embodied the character. And that's why it feels so powerful. That's my opinion. I think the first time I ever felt this, like it wasn't just about putting on a voice, but really embodying the character, was when I tried to voice Emma from The Promised Neverland. Now, skip ahead if you want to avoid Promised Neverland Episode 1 spoilers. I'll give you 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1. Okay, so in Episode 1 of The Promised Neverland, there is a shocking revelation that all of the kids who thought they were happily living in this orphanage are actually living in a farm. And the children are produced to be eaten. It's a really shocking twist. And you can only imagine how much shock and fear and devastation the characters would have felt when their whole life they thought they were living this happy life with, their mama at the orphanage and their fellow siblings, and they were all happy, and it turns out that they're all basically meat to be eaten. It's crazy. It's shocking. And there's a scene near the end of the episode where Emma is running up a hill and she's still in denial over this revelation. She can't believe this whole time her life is a lie. She's trying to come to terms with the fact that her beloved siblings, they're all gonna be shipped off and eaten. They're all gonna die, and it's gonna happen to her too. And she runs up this hill and she's panting because she's running so hard and she's running up this hill. And at the very end, she falls to the ground, cries, and lets out a scream. And I tried voicing that scene. And what I noticed was, when I started the part where she runs up the hill and is panting, my body physically reacted to the panting. So I wasn't actually running, but because I was replicating the panting, it felt like I was running. And when it got to the point where she falls to the ground and starts crying, because my body physically reacted to the panting, I felt really tired, and the crying came out really realistic. It wasn't like fake crying. It felt so real and raw because I had gotten into the moment. It was as if I also just ran up a hill and was trying to catch my breath, but I was crying. And then when I screamed after that, to this day, that is still the best scream. The most grueling, the most painful, the most powerful scream that I have ever been able to perform in my 4-ish years career as a freelance voice actor. And whenever I talk about acting, I think back to that moment and how that moment was my awakening on, oh, this is what acting is. It's not as simple as, okay, I scream, ah! It's that build-up. In that moment, I had embodied Emma's character. I was feeling the moment. I was feeling what she was going through. And that's why the scream at the end came out so nicely. I'd say the only bad part was I don't have the same kind of lung capacity that a professionally trained voice actor has, so the scream was a bit short. It could have been a bit longer, but because I physically was incapable of doing that, it came out a little short. So yeah, I am looking forward to training myself so that I can project my voice better and improve my lung capacity so that I can perform to my heart's extent. Yeah, I hope that was insightful. I don't know if I've ever shared this before on a stream, but voicing Emma from episode 1 of The Promised Neverland, that was my awakening and a very surprising moment for me where I realized that acting is all about character building, embodying the character, and being in the moment. That's how you do performance that truly touches people. Right now, that's what I believe in. I'm looking forward to going to voice acting school in Japan and seeing what my teachers have to say. Yeah! Oh, that was a longer tangent than I thought it would be. Let me see. I have 2 other questions about voice acting. Perfect. Let me drink some water. Oh. So, moving on, we have a question from Long, who says, how hard was it when you started out as a Seiyuu? Were there teaching materials, or did you teach yourself everything? As I mentioned previously, I pretty much didn't follow any teaching materials. It's pretty much all self-taught. It was really hard when I first started out as a voice actor because I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea if I was doing things right. I didn't know if I was qualified to be taking commissions. So to explain how I started taking commissions, actually, it was just me signing up for Fiverr on a whim during COVID, because my initial plans was to go and get a part-time job in either retail or in hospitality, like most people at that time my age would do. But COVID hit, and I was like, oh, I was planning to start going to work and making a bit of money so I can save up to maybe move to Japan one day. And now I have no means to make money because all the shops are closed and we can't go outside in this quarantine. So I thought about what I can do at home to maybe build a business or make a bit of money. I really, really wanted to make sure that I wasn't just going to uni. I wanted to do something that could help me start saving money. So I signed up for Fiverr. I recorded a voice sample on my phone, mind you, not even through like a shitty like Blue Yeti microphone. It was just on my phone. And I edited it in iMovie. Oh my god. I edited my first voice sample in iMovie, and it had horrible, horrible, horrible audio quality. And the voice lines that I recorded were also random sample voice lines that I found on the internet. So it was really bad, basically. But back then I didn't know anything, and I wasn't really expecting to get work. It was just me giving it a try. So I put up my crappy, low quality voice sample along with, starting price $5 on Fiverr, and set up a gig. And to my surprise, within, I think, a week or two, somebody commissioned me. And I was like, oh my god, you want to pay me to voice act for you? Even though my audio sounds like I recorded it in like the bathroom? That's crazy. They paid me more than $5 too. I think my first commission was $10. And to me back then, I didn't think my voice or my, performance was worth any money at all. And that's how it started. To my surprise, even though I didn't get a lot of commissions, definitely nowhere near as much as I get now, every maybe 2 or 3 weeks, somebody would contact me or put in a commission. And, as time went on, I upgraded my equipment. I stopped recording on my crappy laptop microphone, and I bought a USB microphone, which is actually the microphone I am using right now for this podcast. I should upgrade. I've been using this microphone for like 4 years, but it does the job. It's a really good microphone. It's my buddy. I really like it. But yeah, I upgraded my equipment. I also, of course, re-recorded my voice sample. I commissioned an artist to draw my original character so that I can use it for professional images, like, for setting up my gig and stuff like that. And I don't remember exactly when, but maybe 2 months into taking commissions on Fiverr, I developed a brand. My brand now. Erusha, or Erusha VA. That is my brand now. When I first started, I had a profile picture of Killua from Hunter x Hunter. I was always called erusha because that's a nickname that one of my friends gave me many, many years ago. It's just the name that I use, I guess, when I don't want to be identified as my real name. But yeah, I didn't have a character design. I didn't have a brand. It was just erusha and a picture of Killua from Hunter x Hunter. That was me in the beginning. And when I started getting work, I was like, oh, people actually want to pay me to voice act. Maybe I should upgrade my equipment and like design a character that like represents me so that I have a brand, so that I'm recognizable, so that Erusha isn't just, a person with a Killua profile picture, but actually has, like a visual character to represent her. And that's how this character design that you see now came to be. I used to look slightly different. I didn't have this long piece of hair on the side, but I've always had this hair color, this eye color, and this ribbon in my hair. So I just went to the salon, before my VTuber debut. I've always been like this, and to this day, I really love my character design. I actually cooked up this character design in Picrew. You guys might know Picrew. It's a Japanese website where a lot of artists will upload these templates, I guess, where you can kind of design your own original character. A lot of people like to play around with it. When I was trying to think of a character design, I picked one of the Picrews and I chose this hair color, this eye color, and kind of just a basic mid-long length hairstyle with a uniform looking outfit and a cardigan. That was my original design. And here I am now, with my new dress and new hairstyle and some new accessories. Yeah, and now everyone knows me as erusha, looking like this. But the original story was I was just some girl who wanted to make some pocket change during COVID, and I didn't know what I could do because I couldn't even go work at McDonald's because COVID. So I tried putting myself out there, and now this is my full-time job. So what does this teach you? Put yourself out there. Yeah. I think I'm going off topic, but that's, I guess, how it was like when I started out. It was hard because I didn't know what I was doing. But I guess because I was my own boss and I was just trying to figure this out, I didn't need to pay rent or anything. It was just, I'd like to make some side money and save it in my bank account for the future if possible. So there wasn't really any pressure on how well I did, and I was lucky enough that people wanted to commission me. And now I have a portfolio and a lot of repeat clients who come back to me. Yeah. Let me think if there's anything else I want to touch on when it comes to starting out as a voice actor. It took me a lot of time, I think, to properly learn some technique and become good enough to proudly call myself a freelance voice actor. Nowadays, when I introduce myself, I will say, "Hi, I'm erusha. I'm a freelance voice actor. I am a trilingual voice actor." But when I first started off, I'd say like a year into taking commissions, I still questioned, should I? Am I allowed to call myself a voice actor? I never went to school. I never went through training. I low-key don't know what I'm doing. Do I deserve to call myself a voice actor? It was really hard for me because I looked up to voice actors so much. And I admired them so much. And I didn't feel like I deserved to call myself one when I haven't gone through any proper training. But I think it was maybe a year and a half, 2 years into doing it, and getting the opportunity to work with some bigger clients, like actual big companies or people who run really cool businesses. And especially after developing my own brand, starting, social media accounts under the name of erusha, upgrading my equipment and things like that I started to feel like, who cares if I haven't been through professional training? There's a lot of professional voice actors now who never went to school for like theater or never went through quote-unquote professional training. And they are really good at what they do and are beloved by the fans. So it's the same with singing, right? There's so many people who have never gone to vocal lessons or went through professional training for singing, and yet they are now a license or an artist signed to some big label. It happens, especially when it comes to creative things. You don't always have to go through the traditional method of learning techniques. So yeah, I can now confidently say that I am a freelance voice actor because I have a portfolio. I have history. I have a history of working with so many cool people. And a lot of people keep coming back to me because I provide good service. I give people what they want. I help bring characters to life. And people are happy with the quality of my performance and my service. So because I have so many people backing me up and vouching for me, giving me 5-star reviews on multiple platforms, and coming back to me for more and more, I now feel confident in calling myself a freelance voice actor. So yeah, that's where I am now. I hope by going to Japan, I can become even more confident and learn even more techniques. Last question from Anonymous-san. A little more on voice acting. They ask, 1. How can I get started with dubbing? 2. What kind of routine and schedule should I go with if I'm still in school, and how should I practice? 3. Should I go with theater? And 4. What is Seiyuu culture like in Japan? Oh, I'm gonna have a good time with 4. Let's start off with with 1. We have heaps of time. So, how to get started with dubbing or voice acting, I guess. Like I said, I just did voice impressions. And you will be surprised at how many professional voice actors, especially, or maybe exclusively actually, in the English voice acting scene, started with voice impressions. Correct me if I'm wrong, but if my information sources are correct, a lot of professional English voice actors who are in big titles nowadays, they started off with doing voice impressions. No? They were in like a bridge series and fan dubs. That's how they started. Yeah. So that's where you can start. It really also depends on whether you want to do English or Japanese voice acting. I feel like when it comes to Japanese voice acting, it might be more looked down upon to, like dub over anime scenes and stuff like that, because copyright is so strict in Japan. And what was the word for it? Oh my god, I can't remember the word. Or something about like creative freedom, because it's like outside of Japan, it's a lot more acceptable for people to use other people's content to make derivative content out of that. But in Japan, they're super, super strict with that, and sometimes they won't even allow you to like use a picture. Not even like footage from anime, but like they sometimes are not even happy with you using a picture, a screenshot, anything of their character that's licensed to them, their IP. They are super, super strict with that, so you might actually get in more trouble for, trying to, I guess, like, do a voice impression of a character and posting that online. So if you really want to make it professionally, a lot of people actually recommend you to not do that. Now, I am not following their instructions, haha, so maybe it's Jehovah for me, but just keep that in mind. Keep in mind that especially when it comes to Japanese voice acting, it's very frowned upon to use copyrighted content, even if you use it in moderation, even if you use it in a way where you're adding your own twist to it, sometimes they still don't like that. So just keep that in mind. I'm not sure if the English side is more lenient. I think in general, IP holders are very, very, they don't like you using their stuff, basically. So if you want to do voice impressions, maybe just try posting them on Twitter and places where even if you do get found, it's like not that big of a deal, because they'll just strike it and then it'll just be deleted, and it's not like on YouTube where your entire channel might be taken down. Or just save it for yourself. That's what I did. When I first started doing voice impressions and dubbing over a lot of scenes, I didn't post those on YouTube. I can't. I would get in trouble. So I just download them, get rid of the background noise, voice it for my own entertainment and practice, and share it with like maybe my friends. Nobody can bonk you for doing things privately. So if you really want to start practicing and you want to try dubbing over anime scenes, just download it, put it into iMovie or something, and voice over it. Nobody can bonk you for doing it in your own private space. Just don't post it on the internet. I don't know if this is bad advice, but that's what I did. You have to start somewhere, and when you don't know exactly, where can I find scripts to voice? What is like my voice? What kind of characters would I be good at voicing? When you're not sure of all of those things yet, I think the best way to start is to just voice over pre-existing characters. I noticed when I started voicing over pre-existing characters that there were certain character types that I was better at performing than others. Like to this day, I get told that I'm good at doing Genki characters. For a while, I could not voice sexy characters. Like my sexy voice was so bad. I've gotten better at that. That's another technique I've developed over time. I'm a lot better at making my voice sound erotic now. I used to not know how to do it, like just did not know. I only knew how to be a Genki girl. But you can practice. I'm still in the process of practicing my shonen voice. Deepening my voice and keeping it deep. I'm still not the best at it, and I'm in the process of practicing. So hopefully in a year or two, I will be better at controlling my shonen voice. So yeah, try downloading maybe, or you don't even have to download it, just play it on Crunchyroll and mute it, and then just like voice over yourself. See which character feels right for you. I definitely found certain characters were more for me than others, like Emma from The Promised Neverland, who I mentioned earlier. I found Emma super easy to voice. Something about her personality, the way she talks, I felt like just was really comfortable for me. And that gave me an idea, I guess, of the type of characters that I'm good at performing. Emma's one of them. I think, let me think. What are some of the other characters that I'm really good at performing? I find a Makima voice impression really easy to do. And I also find Sakurajima Mai from Bunny Girl Senpai very easy to voice. I think Mai Senpai and Makima are like just very comfortable for my slightly kudere, like cool tone. It's very close to my natural voice. Yeah. And then for Genki characters, I find Kito Akari's characters very comfortable to voice over. You'll notice that your voice and tones that you're comfortable with may be similar to pre-existing voice actors in the industry. And by observing their techniques and how they voice their characters, I think you can learn a lot. So yeah, start off by just trying to voice your favorite characters. And don't be too discouraged when you find out that you're not good at voicing your favorite character, because like, I get that. I remember when I tried voicing Rem from ReZero for the first time, because I love Rem so much. I was like, oh my god, I sound disgusting. Minase Inori sounds so soft, so sweet, so tender, and especially back then when I couldn't control my voice as well, I just sounded like an obasan. Like I sounded like an auntie when I voiced Rem in the beginning. Guys, I sounded like an auntie. It was so bad. But now I've had enough practice in shifting the tone of my voice that I can do Rem pretty well. But that took practice, practice makes perfect. So start off by just trying to see what type of characters fit your voice the best. What type of characters you enjoy voicing and fits your unique tone. I think that's a good place to start. You don't even need to buy a microphone right away. If you do want to buy a microphone, get a somewhat affordable USB mic. Like I said earlier, I still use a USB mic. The audio quality is fine. You just have to be in a good environment. You can get really affordable microphones for like under $200. You don't have to spend like, $700 on a microphone right away. It's okay. You don't even need a microphone. You can just record on your phone when you're practicing. And once you feel like you've developed some skills and you want to try taking commissions or making videos that are of higher quality and you're not just practicing anymore, then you can maybe look into getting a microphone. Yeah. I always recommend against buying equipment before you develop skills. First of all, make sure that you actually enjoy voice acting and dubbing. Second of all, develop a little bit of skills and then invest into getting equipment would be my recommendation. Yeah. If you're still in school, like I said, you don't have to do anything big right now. Go to school. You're probably really busy already with your homework. So just anytime you have some free time, I did this in high school. I would finish my essays and assignments, and then I would dedicate like an hour or two to voicing like the new episode of The Promised Neverland. Whatever anime was airing that season that I was a fan of. And I was like, ooh, I would really, really love trying to voice this character. Okay, let me go get the anime clip up, and I'm gonna try voicing it. I did that. I picked all the characters that I was like, ooh, I really would want to voice this character. And I would just voice over them for fun. That was like my hobby. Instead of playing games or, I don't know what else people do for fun, watch TV. Instead of watching TV or playing games, I used all of my free time to dub over anime scenes. That was my hobby for a while. Start off as a hobby. You have to make sure you enjoy doing it first. So yeah, start maybe dedicating some of your free time in between school and homework to dub over some anime scenes. When it comes to what you should pick in school for studying, I personally never took theater, so I can't say for sure, but I think it's optional. There are a lot of overlaps between voice acting and like physical acting, but I'm a firm believer that they are two different crafts. I know a lot of voice actors get offended when people say voice acting isn't acting or like voice actors aren't actors. And I hope I don't get cancelled for this, but I agree and disagree. It's like voice actors are actors, but they're a different type of actor, and I don't think you need to be so, I guess, salty over the fact that they are two categories, because they are two categories. Yes, you both do acting, but there are two types of different acting that require different skills in some areas. Someone who is a really good voice actor may not be a good actor on screen, or may not be as good. Vice versa, someone who's a really good actor on screen might not be that good of a voice actor. That's my opinion. There are overlaps, especially when it comes to character building, but in the end, when you are a voice actor, you don't get to use your body. You don't get to use your facial expressions, right? You only get to use your voice. What that means is you have to maybe exaggerate. There has to be more nuance in your tone. You have nothing but your voice to express how a character is feeling. Yeah, the animation might help, but you as the actor, you have nothing but your voice to express emotion. So, in a way, it's almost harder than acting on screen because you don't get to use your body. You don't get to use body language. You don't get to use facial expressions. So, it's a different skill. this is one of the reasons why every time I watch a movie, an anime movie, and the voice actors of the main characters are not Seiyuu, are not voice actors, but like actors who usually act on screen, I will think their performance is so underwhelming. Does that mean they're a bad actor? No! When I watch them on screen, they're great. But when I only hear their voice, when I only hear their voice performance, a lot of the times, I'll be like, oh, that's underwhelming. And when that keeps going on, I gradually started to realize that acting on screen and acting in front of a microphone are kind of different. So yeah, I'm not sure if anybody else feels the same way, but this is a really common experience for me because for some reason, movie directors really like to cast on-screen actors as voice actors in movies. There are some exceptions like Kamiki Ryunosuke-san. Shout out to Kamiki Ryunosuke-san, who is the GOAT. Oh my god, he is so good at both. He can do both. I'm guessing it's because he's done a lot of voice acting since he was young, but this man is, usually a on-screen actor, but he is so good at expressing himself through voice acting. And I don't remember her name, but the actress who did the voice acting for Mitsuha in Your Name, she's also really good. I believe they won the best male and female lead awards at the Seiyuu Awards that year, the year Your Name came out, and I fully think they deserve it. They were so expressive and so good at bringing the characters to life, despite usually being on-screen actors. So yeah, there are exceptions, but I won't say any titles, but there are some titles, some movies I've watched where I thought the voice acting was really underwhelming. I checked the credits and I was like, oh, the lead voice actors are people who usually don't do voice acting. So I'm a bit off topic, but my point is theater will definitely help. It'll teach you a lot of things that are valuable because there are so many common things in acting. But in the end, on-screen acting and physically, like acting with your body and your expressions is different to pure voice acting. So if you want to train your acting when it comes to your voice, you should take voice acting lessons. Go get voice acting lessons. I'm not sure how accessible that is, but if your goal is to not become an actor but a voice actor, you should get voice acting training. If anything, you might actually learn more valuable things by taking singing lessons and vocal lessons than theater. I really hope I'm not giving bad advice. Again, I've never gone through professional training myself, but from what I've observed, I think when it comes to raw technique, you actually may learn more techniques that are useful for voice acting in vocal lessons for singing than in theater. So it's up to you. If you have the means to study theater and also do vocal lessons at the same time, I think that would drastically improve your voice acting. So yeah, I went on a really long tangent. Let me see if I still have time to talk about Seiyuu culture in Japan. Okay, I think I do. I guess I'll move on to the final part of Anonymous-san's question, which is, what's Seiyuu culture like in Japan? I can talk about this for a whole hour. Let me see if I can keep it short. So, Seiyuu culture in Japan. It's really, 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 really competitive. How competitive? I don't know the actual statistics, but from the vibe that I get, it's like training to become the next K-pop idol. If you think I'm exaggerating, I may be a little, but it's not that far off, I promise. It is so competitive. If you thought the English dubbing scene was competitive, take that and times it by 30 or 40 or 50. I can't give you an exact number, but the competitiveness of the Japanese voice acting industry is on a different level. It's probably the most competitive voice acting industry in the world. And Seiyuu have it very difficult. A lot is expected of them because it's so competitive. They are expected to be perfect. And nowadays, you not only have to be able to voice act, but you also have to be able to sing. And by an extension of that, dance. And host radio shows. Go on variety programs. Just be a fun, entertaining person in general. Now, as a seiyuu, you have to be an entertainer. You can't just be an actor. No. Just standing behind the microphone and breathing life into a character? Not enough. Sing, dance, go on stage, talk to the fans, host radio shows, be funny, be a clown. It's crazy how much in the past decade or so, the seiyuu industry has evolved from, more like the animation industry where, animators don't really go on TV. People don't really even know animators' names. They work behind the scenes to create anime. Seiyuu used to be more like that. They just voice a character. People don't really know who they are. They just care about the characters. They don't know Seiyuu. But, as time went on, Seiyuu became like micro celebrities and now are full-on celebrities where they appear on TV, they release music and go, do events. Especially with the popularity of idol projects like Aimasu, like Idolish 7, Ensemble Stars, Hypnosis Mic, Paradox Live. I can go on forever and ever about all of the projects. There's also Bang Dream. I'm trying to think of more girl projects like Bang Dream, like Uma Musume. Is Uma Musume idol? I have no idea. But I guess not really idol, but mobile games with a huge cast of characters. And a lot of them, even if the concept is not idols, they may release songs. And because they release songs, there are concerts. Oh my god, I forgot Love Live. How could I not mention Love Live? Yeah, like Love Live. And when projects like this happen, the seiyuu are no longer just voice actors. They are also idols. They are performers. They are expected to train to sing and dance and perform on stage at a paid concert. Seiyuu is so much more than just being a voice actor now in Japan. And it's rough. Not everyone can voice act, sing, dance, talk, etc., etc. That's a lot of things to expect from one person. It's almost kind of like VTubers. Like how VTubers are expected to not only stream, talk, game, be entertaining, but also release covers, sing, get a 3D debut, dance, etc. You know what I mean? Nowadays, the expectations are so high for a seiyuu that if you want to make it into the industry, you really have to have something special going on. Like, you better know how to sing and dance as well as how to voice act. Just knowing how to voice act isn't enough anymore. And you know what you also need to be? Young and beautiful. Or like handsome if you're a guy. Google Umehara Yuichiro-san. Look at, like, I don't know, any female Japanese seiyuu. Look at my queen, Uchida Maya. Look at how beautiful and handsome voice actors are. It's crazy because 10-20 years ago, people didn't expect voice actors who are behind the scenes people to look attractive like a model or idol. And yet, today, seiyuu culture today, because of the idol seiyuu boom, which is like idol seiyuu is the term they use to describe now these like beautifully packaged, handsome, beautiful seiyuu who sing and dance. Because of the trend of idol seiyuu, there's almost an expectation now that if you want to make it into the seiyuu industry, even though your job technically is to voice act, you have to be young, good looking, know how to sing, know how to dance, know how to perform, etc., etc. Yeah, so being good looking is also important now. Yeah, it's crazy. The expectations are so high. I cannot confirm this, so again, take my information with a grain of salt. But I heard from certain voice acting coaches and people making information videos on YouTube that currently in Japan, as a woman, if you want to debut in the Japanese voice acting industry, if you want to make it in the Japanese voice acting industry, you must be under the age of 25. They say that as a woman, once you are 25 or older, you are basically not considered. It doesn't matter how pretty you are. It doesn't matter how talented you are. It doesn't matter how good you are at what you do. If you are over the age of 25, you do not have the right to sign up even for a lot of auditions. Because especially with all these music idol projects like Bang Dream and Love Live, etc., etc., they want to sell you as an idol. You have to dress up pretty and dance on stage and keep that up. So I guess to a lot of higher ups and producers, if you're 25 and they are planning to keep this series going on for 5 or more years, you'll be like 30. And that's too old. You are too old to be an idol. That's what I mean by it's hard nowadays. It's the idol culture in Japan is merging slightly with, not even slightly, it's merging with the voice acting industry. And because Seiyuu are expected to be pretty, sing, dance, they are now also expected to be young. I'm not sure what it's like for men. I think it's a little more forgiving for men. One of my favorite voice actors of all time, Kobayashi Yusuke, he debuted, I believe, when he was 28 or around that age. So I think the industry is slightly more forgiving to men. If you look young and you're good looking and you are very skilled at what you do, I think you can be nearing 30 and you still have a chance to make it into the industry. But if you are a woman, they say that 25 is your limit. When I say your limit, it's for debut. So you have to make it into the industry before 25. So there's a lot of popular female voice actresses now who are in their 30s and 40s even. But that's because they made it into the industry when they were like 18. Most voice actresses nowadays get into the industry when they're 16, 18, 20. It's crazy. They have to get in early because, as I said, once you hit 25, there's just no chance for you. So if you don't debut, get a role, make it into the industry by 25, you can expect to not have a chance. You will be treated as too old. If you go to voice acting school, some teachers might straight up tell you, it's too late, you're too old. It's very harsh. I'm sorry if I crushed anyone's dreams, but this is very important to share because to this day, I feel like so many people don't fully understand how difficult it is to make it as a seiyuu in Japan. Just how competitive it is, just how much they expect from you. Yeah. And did you know that you also don't make a lot of money unless you're a celebrity? All the seiyuu that people know, like Miyano Mamoru, Hanazawa Kana, Kaji Yuki, Hayami Saori, they made it. They're a celebrity. Of course they make money. But do you know about the newbie voice actor who just joined this agency, who has only student A attached to their name and has been struggling to get another role for the past 3 months? You don't know. Because, of course you don't. Then they don't appear in anime. But there are so many people like that. People who join the industry, they finally make it into this competitive industry, and they go on for a year, 2 years, 3 years, with nothing but student A, student B, narrator under their name. That is the reality of this industry. If you don't make it, you're forever stuck with tiny, tiny little roles. And a lot of people just quit, or they are forced to always do a part-time job or another job on the side to support their Seiyuu dream. It's kind of similar to streaming, really. Yeah, that was a bit too real, but we need to keep it real. Seiyuu culture in Japan is harsh. It may look very, bright and beautiful and inspiring on the outside, but it's a really harsh and unforgiving industry that expects a lot from you and yet doesn't give you much in return. The starting salary for voice acting in one episode of anime is, I believe, 15,000 yen, which I'm not sure is how much in USD now because yen dropped quite a bit, but you can Google 15k. 15k yen. I believe that is less than 100 USD now. It used to be more, but I believe now that is less than 100 USD. For one whole episode of recording. Now, if you only got like 2 lines, maybe that's not too bad. But if you only got 2 lines, it probably means you're a side character. And you won't appear ever again in this whole 12, 13 episode running show. If you're the main character, you'll get a lot of lines, maybe thousands of words in one episode. And you'll get to appear every episode. But you are doing that much work for only less than 100 USD an episode. It's pretty harsh. You can only imagine if you get paid less than 100 USD, maybe, I think it's like around 95 USD now. Let's say it's like around 95 USD. If you get paid 95 USD per episode, how many episodes do you have to appear in a month to make a livable salary? Think about it yourself. It's quite a lot. You need to have at least one main character role that appears in every single episode. If all you get is student A, student B, the radio person who appears at the beginning of episode 1, you get to make $95 and then you never get to be a part of this series again. So you either have to get main character roles or you have to get a ton of student A, student B, villager A, villager B roles in like 12, 13 different shows. And maybe do some commercial narration work on the side or some game recordings on the side as well to be able to make enough for a living. It's very harsh. The seiyuu who make the most amount of money, they make it from other activities outside of voice acting, like releasing photo books, releasing CDs, hosting events, and selling merchandise, and just things that are not voice acting, basically. I don't know exactly what seiyuu get paid the most doing, but I know for a fact that it's not voice acting. Everything outside of voice acting pays them more than voice acting, which is so effed up, but that's how it is. I hope someone will correct me in the comments if I am spreading misinformation, but I have been looking into seiyuu culture and just the voice acting industry in Japan for close to 8 years now. So I would like to believe that I'm pretty knowledgeable on it. I look at Japanese sources. A lot of the things that I've said is information that comes from seiyuu themselves, who work in the industry, or from voice acting coaches who again have connections with the industry. So yeah, take my words with a grain of salt, but you can believe me if you trust the credibility of my sources. Yeah. So Yeah, anime doesn't pay the bills. Voice acting doesn't pay the bills. You have to make it big, sell CDs, and host concerts, have fans who want to buy your merch and come to your handshake event to make money. That's how the industry works. That's the current landscape of the Seiyuu industry. That's Seiyuu culture that's how Seiyuu culture is like in Japan. It's not full of dreams and hopes. It's a pretty harsh and unforgiving world. But regardless, I still want to go to Japan. Regardless, I still want to give it a go. Even if I don't make it into the industry, I want to try and learn from a voice acting school in Japan because I think what makes Japanese voice acting stand out so much is because of the competitiveness, right? If it's so competitive, it means that people have to go above and beyond to be able to be chosen. That's why there are so many super talented Japanese voice actors. That's why there are a lot of people who love Japanese voice acting specifically and say it hits different. Now, I think there are really, really good English voice actors, Chinese voice actors, Korean voice actors, voice actors in every language. They're amazing people. But there must be a reason why Japanese voice actors and voice acting in Japanese is so highly regarded. It's because it's so competitive. People go above and beyond to train, to beat their peers, to stand at the top, to get that role, because the auditions are so competitive. So I hope that by putting myself into this environment where the standards are super high and so much is expected of you, and in order to make it into the industry, it's a lot of hard work, and the teachers know how difficult it is and will be real with you and really, train you so that you understand you gotta go above and beyond. I hope by putting myself in that environment, I can grow as a voice actor. And regardless of whether I can dip my toes into the Seiyuu industry in Japan or not, I think going to voice acting school in Japan will be a very valuable experience. Yeah. So, as I mentioned at the start of the podcast episode, I am currently in the process of moving to Japan to attend voice acting school. I am going to finish filling in my enrollment papers and send them in soon. I hope that I'll get to continue updating everybody on how things go, and I hope that I'll learn more about Seiyuu culture in Japan so that I have more insights to share. I hope that I can learn valuable things and grow as an actor. I will try my best. Even though it's a harsh industry to survive in, regardless of whether, you try to make it as a professional or do it freelance on the internet like I do, it is a harsh industry. It's competitive. I have a lot of competitors now as a freelance voice actor too, and I have to keep polishing my skills and market what I've got and really put myself out there. That's partially why I do streaming too, so that I can get more people to find me, have more eyes on me, so that I have more potential clients to work with. It's all a part of the business. There are so much things that you have to do to put yourself out there. Doing social media is a part of that. A lot of Seiyuu nowadays, they do social media too just because they want to get their name out there. It's a harsh world. It's a difficult industry. And just entertainment in general, like idol VTubers as well, is the same. You have to do your best to put yourself out there, to push yourself onto the algorithm. Be on TikTok, be on YouTube, be on Twitch, be on Twitter, be on Instagram, be on every platform. Get your name out there so that even just one extra person will be able to find you. That's what we gotta do to survive. But I think it's rewarding. I am really happy that I got to start my own podcast. Like I said in the beginning, it was my dream to have my own radio/podcast. And I no longer have to be Delulu and talk to myself anymore. I actually have an audience to talk to. That's crazy. Imagine having people actually listen to you instead of having to talk to yourself. That's something I could have never imagined back then. And that's where I am now. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of erusha no Sarubi Talk. In this podcast, we talk about otaku culture, voice acting, language learning, and more. I've been your host, Erusha, a trilingual voice actress and Vtuber fluent in English, Japanese, and Mandarin Chinese. I hope to see you again in the next episode. Atsueru! Thank you for listening! じゃ、またねー。また次の配信で会いましょう。I'll see you again in my next stream. Thank you for watching.